So, hello and welcome to a new episode. This is the earliest I have recorded any episode for the podcast. I have gone late in the night, but early mornings, this is has to be the earliest recording. Thank you for taking time. I know you're caught up in multiple duties. And for a change, I do not know what my first question is. So, let me ask you one thing. Uh, First, please introduce yourself to our audience, Kiran.
Okay, so I'm Kiran Menon, and I've met Bunty when I was in my stint with advertising, and I'm currently a homemaker with three kids at home, and partly enjoying the part of being a homemaker. But yes, I am definitely always looking out to engage myself in multiple things, may it be catering, may it be counseling, or anything else that catches my fancy at that instant. Uh, yeah, that's what I am, and that's how I am. Yeah.
Okay, that is interesting. That gave me my first question. Um Somehow there is this feeling of that homemakers uh, aren't achievers of sorts. This is a prevalent feeling among both males and females, I think. Uh, for the longest time, when I was growing up, this was one thing that I actually was confused about. Because on one hand, you were thankful that everything was in place because somebody was doing it, but it was always taken for granted. So, is that what motivates you to go out and search for new experiences? I'm talking in the present right now, not as a thought process overall. In the practical sense, what is it that is pushing you out, or is it something else?
Okay. So, what pushes me to be a homemaker? Let's talk about that first. So, what pushes me to be a homemaker is the kind of value that I'm giving to my children. In the sense, not the moral values that I'm talking about, but even the general value, the fact that I am there to listen to what they have faced, the fact that I am there if there is a problem, I am there to solve that problem, and they don't have to turn to anybody else. For example, a maid or anybody for that matter. I, as a parent, am there to solve their problems. And of course, when I see them succeeding, even in the smallest things, let it be my son's sport, or let it be my daughter's dance, or let it be um, extracurriculars or studies of my children, and I see them successful in it and happy as individuals, that definitely gives me a lot of pleasure and reinforces the fact that to why I am a homemaker. Um, of course, the decision was taken mainly because of the safety that I'm providing them, because there are a lot of things happening in the society right now which is just unsafe for children. So that was foremost the most important thing for me. The decision that I took to be a homemaker. What pushes me otherwise is the constant need to engage my, let's say, my brain, engage myself in my interests. Let it be my dancing, let it be my cooking, let it be even my love for advertising as a field. And also, as a person, as an individual, I'm a person who always likes to be engaged in in a job. I mean, I just love working. I've always loved my career, and I've always loved, making friends on my, in my job place, in my workplace. So that is another thing that has, pushes me actually to see how I can engage myself along with being a homemaker. So it is a struggle because the current society, or let's say the workforce, doesn't have that kind of balance for homemakers, even if they're career oriented, even if they are qualified, and even if they have a lot to offer. Always the work experience is, I should put it in quotations, I think that the work experience is what is always counted by, rather than what the individual has more to offer. So yeah.
Um, with due respect to what you ended that answer with, there was something else that was running in my head while you were answering that. Uh, it's completely contrarian to what I asked you before. On one hand, we have this, I would not want to really call it split personality, but all of us seem to have different interests, varied pushes and pulls. Um, I remember there was this play called Arms and the Man, written by George Bernard Shaw. And in that, there is this guy who's the general of the army, but he's actually quite a coward. So he runs away in the battle, but his forces win the battle and come back. So when they are coming back, he comes and heads them again and takes credit for it. And meanwhile, he has an affair or something with somebody else, which he shouldn't have. I don't remember that character. But while he is indulging himself, at that point of time, he thinks that the hero of that battle, that he thinks he is, what would he think of this guy who is a philandering kind of fellow? Something loosely like that.
Okay.
And the point that Shaw was trying to make is that there are so many faces that we put on at different points of time. So my question to you now comes from that understanding. You're a homemaker, you're a mother. I would say that these two are by itself different responsibilities when you want to uh, treat them as such. Uh, then there is the role of a wife or a role of a person who's staying at home and the other things that come along with it in terms of handling home finances or uh, stocking up for food or anything as such. There are a lot of things that you have to do. Meanwhile, there is also this yearning that you have to go out in the world, make friends, kind of not prove yourself, but give some freedom to your expression of knowledge or expertise. Now, in all these pushes and pulls, how do we come back to find who we essentially are? Uh, that's my question.
So, don't you think all of us have these compartments in us where we are the different individuals we are portraying? So, I am a wife, I am a mom, I am a person who's resourceful at home. I mean, I am the only resource, or I wouldn't say I'm the only supply chain manager at home. And I'm also a person who has her own interests, who has her own friend circle. So I am playing the roles of many people, and I'm sure even I mean, if I speak about my husband, I'm sure he also does the different
Yeah,
roles that he plays. So I think all of us do have these compartments in us where we are playing. So and that is what makes us. Now, if I was only a mom and I was not the supply chain manager, how am I, a wife, or how am I a homemaker? And if I'm only a mom, how am I going to, how am I going to give my experiences of being a friend or a good friend to my best friend? How is that experience, or how are those experiences going to be taught to my child? How am I going to teach him or her how to be a good friend if I'm only going to be a mom?
uh,
So I think all of us do play that role, and each role is important because our experiences as let's say a supply chain manager at home comes into being a mom. Mom's role comes into being a friend, because when the friend needs the comfort, you're going to be the mother there when you want to comfort your friend. So I think we all play that role.
okay.
We all play those different roles
Uh,
in our life. In our
I want to actually specify and also comment on what you said. I didn't mean it in a manner where there is a tug of war necessarily between these roles. Although your answer gave me a thought that means if we understand who we are in that given moment or what is required of us by life, it could be with a friend who's having a certain kind of problem that you need to be patient and you need to be. But personally, you might be impatient as a part of a workforce where you are going out and meeting deadlines, and you're always in a rush. But here, the friend
Maybe.
needs you to listen, and the story might be long-winded and might be might be boring sometimes. But you are giving your
Yeah.
both your ear and your heart, saying, I'm here. You tell me what is wrong. So at that
Hmm.
point of time, uh, knowing yourself and knowing what is required kind of cuts across all the other crap of other roles that we play. Because in the moment, you can possibly only draw on to everything that makes you you. It need not be a label per se. And within that conversation, also different roles could be played. If you think that the bullshit is going too far, you will actually, as a friend, call out and say, "Kid, no, stop here." But you're still mothering the person of sorts. So I'm saying there are multiple roles
Right.
being played within the same moment as well. But having said that,
Absolutely.
the idea of being comfortable with your own self uh, in whatever role life draws us into, because some part of it is unplanned as well. Uh, Something triggers off something, you start something. You mentioned
Right.
catering and counseling. Like in my mind, perhaps I could never bring the two together. But here is a living example
Absolutely.
of somebody who's doing both, or has done both, or plans to do both. Uh, for all you know, certain kinds of food bring certain kind of mind states. Would be a possibility that nobody has ever looked at, and you would be one of the rare ones to point that out. Or else, within counseling, sometimes you would think somebody is in a bad shape. Okay, you eat chocolates once in a while. That gives you that rush. That's okay, and you play along with it. Um, okay, a different perspective to the same question. There is a lot of uh, emphasis on experience, like you said. We are already looking for ready-made answers to questions that haven't even propped up yet. And it is, although you mentioned your own scenario, um, I find that happens. I have been working from home for more than 8 or 10 years now. Uh, I had two patients. You mentioned when we spoke last that you had some health challenges with your loved ones at some point of time. Now, that is not written in any book how you're supposed to deal with it. Of course, there are people who are trained for it. There are certain caretakers you can bring in who have been trained for certain kind of thing. You get trained on the job with, okay, this is how you have to handle that particular patient. What is its need or her need at that point of time? But most times it's a losing proposition even on scenes like those, because things happen faster than we can understand, anticipate, or react. Now, with a world which is increasingly asking for experience, do you think that um, you should stand up and fight and say this should not happen, or you made your peace and you will find your own what Bombay guys called patli gali? Okay, I'll find my solution or jugaad to it. And how do you view this with a serious impact on your, because it's impacting your life right now, this need for
Yeah, it does.
experience. So how do you see it?
Um, See, the entire experience of, facing what went down 4 years, I mean, for the past 4 years of my life, with my, as what you know, I mean, with my dad, um, it has taught me one thing,
Hmm?
that entire 4 years of experience has taught me one thing, that we always think that, oh, we always feel that we should always be able to give back to our parents what they have given us. They have, sacrificed a lot for us. And while growing up, and all along, in fact, I've been a complete rebel to my parents. I haven't outrightly rebelled them on their face, but my at that point of time, I would say I have taken the patli gali, as what you said, and done things where I have, kept myself happy, what I want to do, but I've also seen to that I've not hurt them in any way. So that is for me a patli gali, as what you said, it's like a patli gali kind of outlook that I had. Escapism is what we call it. Um, but these past 4 years, what has happened is I have seen my parents, my mom especially, really fight it out and look after my dad. My dad, even though he is very strong as a personality, uh, there were times when I did see him falter. He was a person who could make strong, able, decisions for anybody around him. But when it came to his own health, it did falter, and it was left to us, to us three, that is my mom, me, and my husband, to take those decisions, to help him take those decisions, and be with him in those decisions. So, as getting back to what I was trying to say is, the one thing that I have learned from these 4 years is, how much ever you do for your parents, it's less.
Yeah,
It's just less. And we keep telling ourselves कि अरे हमने ये किया है, हमने वो किया है, you know but काफी नहीं है. Because once a person is gone, you then retrospect and have a lot of guilt, which is unnecessary. I'm not saying no. And maybe, as what I said, this is my pain, this is my my unresolved issues with his death, which I haven't addressed yet, because I've been too busy handling my mom's grief. And it may be all those things, but I have understood one thing: whatever you do is just not enough. That guilt definitely creeps in. So I can't imagine. I mean, I know situations currently in my life, in my friend's life, where they are going through similar situations. And the only advice I can give them is, just forget about what is being done to you and what was done to you as a child by your parents. You might have find a lot of injustice in what they've done. And it might be true, because after all, it's you who has faced it.
yeah, yeah,
But at the end, if you can do something big for your dad or mom or whoever is in that situation that you're in right now, just do it. Because later
yeah,
on, it really eats at you.
yeah,
So, is there a Patli Gali for me right now? No, because for me now, the Patli Gali would be, escaping my grief, which is what I shouldn't be doing. That is my Patli Gali for now. But all along my entire life, I have felt that my Patli Gali was not standing up to them and not hurting them and not not telling them outrightly. That was my Patli Gali, but I still feel whatever I've done, even though it has, when my dad left, he was a happy father that he has raised a
good child.
person who is, yeah, a good child for him. I know what I've done, right? I know what I've done all along in my childhood. But yes, as an adult, as a daughter, yes, I have done things which have been what he wants or what my mom wants, and I don't regret it. I don't regret
Yeah,
being that, doing that for my parents, because even after doing all that, I still have a lot of regret. I still have a lot of guilt कि मैंने ये क्यों नहीं किया.
ah,
I don't want, I mean, let's say, for example, I don't want anybody whom I know, at least, they shouldn't have that feeling. It's, it's not a good feeling to, live with. I think we can live with a lot of feelings in our life, a lot of regrets, but something that we've not done for our parents is not a regret that we should be living with. So when we have a chance, let's do it. I
I,
don't know whether I've answered your question, but I just took the Patli Gali as, a thing that is going on right now. I mean, that was rightly put. Patli Gali is what is right now for me is, escaping my grief. I haven't addressed it. Yeah, I
uh,
know I haven't.
I, I have something to say on that because I completely empathize. My dad had Alzheimer's for around, I think, 6 or 7 years. So from being a very, very uh, a surprised son to start with, I have a brother also who helped out, but he was looking more into the financial angle of a lot of things because I couldn't concentrate on both at the same time. I had a good job initially, and it continued, but over a period, I couldn't pay too much attention to that aspect of life. So I was doing the caretaking bit a little more than he was. And well, I've been good, I've been bad, I've been terrible, and I've been the instigator, and I've been the problem solver. I've done all kinds of things because Alzheimer's is a very crazy kind of disease because As a person, you can see the person as like whole, but inside something has
Correct.
changed, and their view of you and your view of them is keeps on changing on a daily basis. And it also is very draining when there are physical needs to be met for the patient as well, for yourself obviously, but for the patient as well. So there were a lot of things that I completely understand where you're coming from. The one thing that I do, if it works for you, is I think of happy memories, like the smallest of things actually. I solved a lot of problems because he loved chai and I love chai. So very often when we used to take him for some kind of alternative treatment and he wanted to run away because he was very impatient. He couldn't sit in one place for more than 2 3 minutes, 5 minutes. So there was no way to make him sit. So I used to say, "Chalo chai बुला लेते हैं." एंड वो चाय वाले को चाय बोल के नहीं आते थे, फिर वो 5 मिनट बैठे 10 मिनट बैठे, फिर जब एकदम nth डिग्री पे यू रीच द पॉइंट वेर ही इज नाउ नॉट गोइंग टू सिट, so that time you somehow call for the chai within the next 2 minutes. So now he's sitting and having chai. And it was a happy thing for him because he didn't mind waiting for chai. For example, like
Mm.
this is one of the things. And I think now when I look back, I think it's a wonderful thing as a kid to do where you literally been patient with your parents as much as they've been patient with your
Definitely.
yeah daily nonsense, whatever we could have come up with and all. So that is a very very strong happy feeling to have. Along with obviously there is a guilt trip that happens sometimes. The other thing that I do is I remember everything is impermanent in the sense of even this guilt is very temporary. I give it its space. I honor it for what it is worth, but I don't make it the truth of my life. It's not like a cast in stone feeling. I know abhi hai, thodi der hai, and you feel bad. And then you say sorry, कि I wish I had done this better. I knew better. But then you let go. Because neither are we honoring our own selves and the effort that we put in with our limited understanding, and nor are we making them happy wherever they are, because they would definitely
Yeah.
would not want us to go through any kind of grief. So that is something that I try for myself, see if it kind of works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, on a on a lighter note, uh, did your kids think that you grew up nicely because of how these 4 years went? कि suddenly मम्मी थोड़ी cool हो गई है यार, ऐसा कुछ हुआ क्या? Because then you
Uh,
have a lot more bandwidth
in
with
fact, it
everyone.
was, yeah. So in the 4 years, it was actually the reverse because they were like, my mom has grown two heads. So, it was that way. Now the thing is that I kind of end up, I should I say extrapolating, because the moment they do something which hurts me, let's say whatever it might be, the smallest of the things which
Yeah,
hurts me, and I kind of extrapolate it, and I'm like, let's not do it because we all have limited time. We don't know how much time. Let's be happy. Let's you know learn things rather than fighting with each other, and it ends up being that kind of a conversation. And and then it turns back into my childhood when I have done something similar, because I am 100, I mean it's like 200% sure that whatever they're doing is all me. I mean, in my mind I'm like, किसका बेटा है किसका बेटी है, it's like that. मेरे जैसे ही है ना, so I kind of like, okay, they're doing things what I have done, but and I know they've done it because I have been in that situation, so I kind
yeah,
of know what is going on in their mind. So I kind of know that, so it's more easier for me to catch on to it. So then I start giving them examples. I have done this, and it's not. I mean, at that instant, it's really good. But that's how this is. It's how this is how. I mean, once my parents came to know about it, it's how. I mean, it really hurt them. So why do it? It ends up being that kind of a conversation. Currently, that's the situation we are in. Uh, I don't know how it's going to be in the future. I mean, right from the time I got my son in my arms and my girls were born, I always thought, my mom was never a friend to me. My dad was always my dad because obviously working and hardly, I mean, he
yeah,
was there at home, of course, but of course, work was a primary thing for him. Uh, did they? look after me? Did they do everything for me? Yes, they did. How much ever was in their capability. Were they a friend to me? No. I was an only child, so I always, saw the comfort in being with friends. And so one thing that was very clear about is my kids should have siblings, and I would be more like a friend to them, along with being a mother. I haven't reached that balance yet because I'm still a mother. I have been less of a. I think my husband is more of a friend to them than me. But yeah, that's how it is currently. Hoping that it changes. I keep changing my mindset as much as I can. So right now, the balance is such that he is more of a friend and I am more of a strict teacher at home.
Hmm.
But hopefully that changes when they grow up a little more.
Uh, when dad was unwell, we called some doctor who was talking about the mind space and how to handle patients who have Alzheimer's or stuff. So he had clarified, she had clarified that one of you is going to be the villain. And I think it's true in every story of our life. There has to be a bad cop and a good cop. You cannot cop out of that one. And
True.
so that is one. On a funny note, something that you shared, when my kid used to lie or do something, uh, I always caught her. So she was always curious how I knew. I said, because I was a liar all my life. It is only now that I have become a straightforward.
Very
Because
true.
she used to really dislike that aspect that she couldn't hide anything and all. Over a period, I changed that. Initially I started keeping quiet, and then later on I actually decided not to even get that thought in my mind. Okay, let her flower as she's flowering, and it's okay to figure out your way around life. Since this is turning out to be a motherhood kind of chat, so I'll ask you another motherhood question. As a parent, how do you balance fear and fearlessness, like being in control and not and letting go of that control?
Hmm. Uh, this will need a little bit of thought. So, how do I do it? I think it depends on the situation that I'm faced with. So, for example, okay, so let's say my son, he is into golf, right? So there's this constant thing that he feels that he needs to. I mean, obviously there is this pressure of performing well, starting to play tournaments, winning tournaments and doing well. And the fear is in this is that I think I'm speaking on his behalf here. So the fear is that uh, my parents have invested a lot, let it be financially or even time for that matter. And if I don't perform well, that is the fear. Now, the fearlessness comes from, it's something that the parents have to start giving that it's fine if, you don't want to be a professional golfer, or that option is there. Yes, it is something that you had a dream where you wanted to be, take it up professionally and you wanted to start playing tournaments. But um, is that really what you want? Or is it something, or are you doing it, you continued on this journey because you've told us that goal, and you're now trying to fulfill it just for our sake because we've invested so much. So the fearlessness has to be, you're okay. I mean, we are fine with, even if you want to just play it as a sport, forget about the money and, the time that has been invested, take it up as a sport. If you feel you don't want to take it up professionally anymore, then face it. Let's not do it. So there comes the fearlessness part where I try to teach him that it's okay to, leave it in between if he's not happy with it.